You guys know the whole spiel with this. What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great night. Thanks for swinging by. Let's get into it. So a couple of videos ago, we made a video called 6 modifications that are essentially the biggest waste of money for your daily driver, and you guys kind of wanted an inverse of that one. So today we're talking about 6 modifications that I think are the best ones you could possibly do for your daily driver. These are also the 6 modifications that I genuinely always do first to any of my cars that I'm building or modifying. So when it comes to modifying your daily driver, there's a couple things that you really don't want to give up. That's going to be the reliability of the car, the overall fuel economy of the car, the daily versatility of having a daily driver. So you don't want to slam it to the ground, you don't want to lift it super high or anything like that. So we want to be able to keep these concepts in mind as we're going through this, because we don't want to sacrifice any of those as we're modifying the car, because these are our daily drivers. Well, this one's not so much my daily driver, but now, with all of these videos, please remember that these are my opinions and my ideas for these. If you disagree or agree with anything, feel free to throw it down in the comments below. You guys know I'm an open person and I love communicating and talking about this stuff. And if there's anything that you feel like I missed for any of these good parts, drop it below. We'll talk about it. Keep everyone else informed, because I am all open to positive information going out to everyone else. So with that, let's jump into it. The 6 modifications that I think are the best. Well, I think they're the best for a daily driver. So, I mean, you know what I mean, let's get into it. So the first one on the list that we're going to be talking about is actually going to be vehicle lighting. This can be both interior and exterior lighting for the vehicle. Now, generally, whenever I buy a car, I personally don't like the incandescent bulbs that come on the car. I think LEDs have a much cleaner, more crisp, and more well-rounded look than those older incandescent bulbs do. Now, don't get me wrong, for the past 100 years or so, incandescent bulbs have been doing wonderful. They've been satisfying everyone's needs, but with technology advancing and LEDs coming out and all these other things, I mean, even HIDs aren't even where they used to be 5 years ago. But with LEDs progressing, they are becoming the future. So generally, whenever I buy a car, I swap out all of the vehicle's exterior and interior lighting. Now, this also helps improve visibility to other drivers both during day and nighttime if you decide to use these as daytime running lights, which a lot of people do and a lot of cars still retain. Now, for the interior lights, I mean, if you want it to be stupid bright, you can buy some really bright LEDs to really illuminate the interior of the car. But overall, I just think swapping out to a better looking and different color temperature LED really helps bring the car's personality out and helps it stand out a little bit, especially against some of the other cars out there that are still running incandescent bulbs or just halogen bulbs. And it's much cleaner. Swap to LEDs. Now, here's a modification that you may or may not have expected to be on the list, but it's going to be a short shifter. Now, you can get these dealer installed as an OEM Plus option out there. A lot of companies nowadays are actually doing this. However, the difference between an OEM short shifter and an aftermarket one is night and day difference. I promise you this. However, like I said, we do not want to compromise the drivability or the reliability of the car when doing so. So when it comes to a short shifter, make sure that you're doing your research on a company or a specific one that you've been looking at for positive reviews when it comes to daily driving aspect. You don't want one that's way too short, you don't want one that feels way too notchy, and you want one that goes into gear smoothly. Personally, I like Cartboy. They make a lot of good short shifters out there for a lot of different cars. I've used Cartboy, Boomba, Cobb, a plethora out there. Some I hated, some I liked. Like I said, make sure you're doing your research. Now, having a short shifter in the car really enhances the driving experience. Whether you're getting up onto that on-ramp, maybe you're sitting in traffic, just wanting to get through gears a little bit faster, but it really brings to life the driver feedback and the driving experience that you're getting from the car. And if you've been on the channel for a while, you know how much I harp on the driver feedback modifications, whether that be like stainless steel brake lines, short shifter bushings, all that good stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. But short shifter, one of the best modifications that I personally think you can do to your daily driver if it is a manual transmission. I mean, if you're an automatic transmission, I'm not quite sure what you can do there. Maybe swap the car if you want, but I'm joking. It's your daily. Don't go all out and start swapping transmissions on your car. Now, the next modification actually goes in hand with the short shifter, and that's going to be having some better gear oil. Now personally, I like to use Motul 75 weight 90 for my cars because I feel like it gives the transmission a much more crisp feeling when putting it into gear. Now that's not to say that the OEM fluid that's in the car is good or bad, because I don't know what is in your car, and if you bought your car used, you probably don't know what's in the car either. But for example, when I pulled out the OEM Subaru fluid in my STI, swapped in the Motul, the shifts felt a lot cleaner. It didn't feel as notchy as it was before, and it felt a lot more crisp. It also will give a little bit better longevity to the transmission depending on what gear oil that you're putting in the car. Some of them have a better heat rating than other ones have a longer wear life than some of the other ones out there. Like I said with everything, do your research when it comes to the gear oil that you're considering for your car. However, this is also a very cheap modification. It's not really even a modification. I guess it falls under maintenance, but it's such a cheap item that you can do for your car, and it's so easy. Now on that next service interval, when it comes to servicing your differentials and your transmission, you might as well try throwing in some better gear oil in the car. I promise you, you'll see a difference. You'll feel the difference when you're driving. Some of you can vouch for this if you've used Motul in the past. A lot of us in the Subaru community do. I'm not quite sure outside of that, but it is a really good modification. It's not even a modification, it's a maintenance item to do to your car, and it's so cheap, so why not do it? So the next modification that we have actually kind of takes place in the engine bay and around the rest of the car, but that's going to be basic chassis bracing and bushings. Now that can also dive into a little bit of suspension modification as well, but I'm not telling you to go all out. Get bags, get all of these sway bars, end links, chassis bracing absolutely everywhere on the car. But personally, I like things to be a little bit heavier and a little bit stiffer than the way they come from the factory. Some of the basic chassis bracing and bushing modifications that I always do on all of my cars is generally going to be steering rack bushings to help really dial in the steering wheel feel a little bit. Maybe a strut tower bar in the front and the rear of the car just to tighten up that chassis a little bit more and make it a little bit more responsive than how it came from the factory. And I think the farthest I would go for a daily driver would potentially be coilovers or just a lowering spring. You do not need to go all out on bags unless you really want to build a street car, you want to build a show car, or you want to build something that just all around is just very low. Remember, we don't want to sacrifice versatility of driving, reliability of the car. Now, bushings and stuff like that aren't really going to play into fuel economy, but you get what I'm saying. We don't want to compromise the overall A to B potential of a car just when going all out modifying. So some of the good just basic modifications for chassis bracing and bushing for a daily driver, in my opinion, would be like steering rack bushings, maybe a rear diff bushing insert just to help really tighten up that rear diff a little bit more, front and rear strut tower bars, and potentially a lowering spring just to get the chassis a little bit stiffer than it already is. So you guys knew tires were gonna be on the list, you just didn't know at what point they'd come up. So a lot of cars nowadays come with some pretty solid tires from the factory, especially for daily driving aspect. They pretty much got you covered like 80% of the time. But for the other 20%, if you don't get a good tire on the car, having a good tire can really make all the difference, because you only have 4 points of contact with the road, and obviously that's your tires, unless you're slammed to the ground and you're dragging your entire frame across the street. Don't do that. But for example, when it comes to tires, if you buy an OEM WRX or STI, you get a summer tire with the car. Now that's all good and dandy if you live anywhere in the US that it doesn't rain. Maybe Arizona, Nevada, certain parts of California, every now and then you might get a little bit of rain. But up here in the Pacific Northwest, for example, we get rain like 300 days of the year, and having a dedicated summer tire on the car just isn't a good idea. So this modification is going to be a good set of all-season tires. Now, tires can get pretty expensive, and this actually is the most expensive modification on the list, but it will make all the difference. It also will give you a little bit more confidence when you want to dig into the car, say on freeway, on ramps, maybe you're just trying to get up to speed a little bit, maybe you just want overall better grip in all sorts of conditions. A good all-season tire is a solid way to go. However, this is going to vary depending on where you live, because if you live in areas that get a lot of snow in the wintertime, or you live somewhere that just is always dry, maybe a summer tire is always good for you, or maybe you do need a dedicated set of winter tires. But for daily driving, 90% of the time, I'm gonna say that a good all-season tire will get you through whatever you need to. Now the last modification that I have for you guys is going to be a muffled exhaust for your car. Not something like this. This goes for the BRZ and we're going full send with this one. However, having a muffled exhaust on your car really helps bring to life the smaller, quieter tones of it. Now there are a lot of OEM plus options out there that manufacturers make for cars, such as like SPT for Subaru or STI as they are now. And I know some other makes and manufacturers do the same thing. If you don't want to spend an arm and a leg, I know you can kind of work this into the price of the car when you go to buy it. However, if you are looking for an aftermarket exhaust, something with a 3-inch or 4-inch muffler will probably get the job done to where you're not obnoxiously loud rolling around on the streets and you will still be able to hold a conversation in the car. Plus, with a muffled exhaust, down low the car really isn't too loud, but if you really do want to hear it, you can open it up on the top end of that RPM range and really start to get that sound out of the car a lot better. All right, you guys, so there you have it. Those are my 6 modification recommendations for any daily driver out there. They're also the 6 modifications that I do to all of my cars as well, because they're so versatile that they don't only apply to having a daily driver. Now, these 6 modifications, like we talked about at the beginning, do not compromise those principles that we touched on, such as the reliability, the versatility, the overall fuel economy of the car. But with that, that's really going to wrap it up here for this video. If you guys want more videos like this, feel free to let me know down in the comments. If not, I will stop making these all together and we'll go back to what we normally do. But anyways, if you guys do like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up and turn it blue like the Subaru. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, help your boy out. I'll do one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet. But with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, homies.